You're raised as an athlete to fight back. So why all of a sudden when you retire do you stop the good fight?
This is Finding Center with Nick Hardwick.
It's shameful. It shames people. It stigmatizes them. Nobody wants it. In 1979, so 41 years ago, when I told my dad I wanted to be a psychiatrist, he asked me why I didn't want to be a real doctor, why I wanted to be a nut doctor and hang out with nuts all day long. And my dad's not a dumb guy.
Right.
And I mean, he horrified me. I mean, he never really got Father of the Year award, but so many people believe that if you're anxious, if you're depressed, if you have bipolar disorder, that you're weak and that you could, if you wanted, to snap out of it. But nobody says that to diabetics, and nobody says that to people who have heart disease. But if you don't look at the organ and you really leave psychiatry as a very soft science, I mean, you know, what medical specialists never look at the organ they treat.
Right.
The shame, the stigma will just continue at a rate that's horrible.
Life, it is such a wonderful experience, and without health, we can't enjoy all that it has to offer. If you haven't heard, our family has a new supplement line with our name on it. We are so proud. Check us out at hardwick.life. It's like hardwick.com, but instead of .com, it's .life. We have been taking these exact pharmaceutical-grade supplements for several years now. We are waiting on our shipping and fulfillment process to get up to the quality and the standard that we expect and that you expect, and now it's on point, and we can't wait for you to try. We love the enhanced immunity they offer all of us. I put my body through the ringer with football. I love knowing that I'm doing everything in my power today to ensure that I'm giving myself the best chance possible to live that fulfilling life along with my family. Check out these pharmaceutical-grade products and new family-friendly recipes posted all the time, both on our Instagram and online at hardwick.life. Hardwick.life, foundational elements for a fulfilled life. Check them out. You guys know this. If you follow my stories on Instagram at Nick Hardwick, you better be following along. What are you doing? Then you already know I post almost every meal that I eat. I do that to show that health, maintaining a fit and active body and lifestyle, it's not a trick. It's just consistently making really good choices. One choice I've made almost every single morning since 2017 when this company was founded, BUBS Naturals, collagen, protein, and MCT oil powder. One way or another, I've used them religiously almost daily. I swear by it. You're going to love it. Super good. No other collagen brand can claim to be 100% NSF certified. If you are in the San Diego area, products are now available at all Barron's Markets. Stop in, pick some up today. See how conveniently health can fit into your life. I love it in a coffee. I also love it. I make this really nice green tea, a matcha green tea latte. It is absolutely fabulous. Put a little protein in there, a little MCT oil, and then they got this little whisk stick. It's perfect. If you don't have a Barron's near you or you don't want to go to the store right now, totally get it. Order it online at bubsnaturals.com. You can also check out their blog for creative recipes at bubsnaturals.com. Use the code. Check this out. They're up in the ante. Hardwick 20 for 20% off your order. Hey, family, welcome back in. So happy you are joining us once again. We have a fabulous guest today, Dr. Daniel Amen. The Washington Post called Dr. Amen the most popular psychiatrist in America, and Discover magazine listed his brain imaging research as the top neuroscience story for 2015. He is a double board certified psychiatrist, 10-time New York Times bestselling author with such blockbuster books as Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, Healing ADD, Memory Rescue, Change Your Brain, Change Your Grades, and The Daniel Plan, co-authored by Pastor Rick Warren and Dr. Mark Hyman. In March 2020, his book, The End of Mental Illness, is out. It is out now. You can see right here. I've got a copy in my hands. It is fabulous. Dr. Amen is the founder of Amen Clinics, which has 8 locations across the United States. Amen Clinics has the world's largest database of brain scans related to behavior, totaling more than 160,000 SPECT scans on patients from 121 countries. Dr. Amen's research team has published more than 70 scientific articles. He is the lead researcher on the world's largest brain imaging and rehabilitation study on professional football players. Hey, I'm one of those. His research has not only demonstrated high levels of brain damage in players, but also the possibility of significant recovery. Hooray for many with the principles that underlie his work. His team also published the world's largest functional brain imaging study on how the brain ages with over 62,000 SPECT scans. Dr. Amen has also hosted 14 national public television shows about the brain, which have aired over 100,000 times across North America. Dr. Amen is married to Tana, the father of 4 children and 5 grandchildren. You can find him at endofmentalillness.com, amenclinics.com, danielamenmd.com/events/end-mental-illness. Check him out. I'm telling you, you want to follow him on Instagram. You want to follow him wherever you can. If you are at all concerned about your brain or a loved one of yours brain, he is absolutely worth the follow. He is a thought leader, and we are so glad to have him. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Joining us today on the Finding Center podcast, Dr. Daniel Amen. Dr. Amen, thank you so much for the time. How are you holding up?
I'm doing good, Nick. You know, there's either going to be post-pandemic stress disorder or post-pandemic growth. And I'm going to work hard to be in the growth section.
What are you doing to be in that growth section?
You know, I actually like the extra time with my family. That has just been a real blessing. I have a daughter who's 16, a niece who's 15 that I adopted, and another 10-year-old niece that I adopted. And they were just always too busy for us. And now they're sort of captive. And, you know, for the first week, it was really hard for them, but they've adjusted so well. And we will never again get this time back. And so it's family time. And then it's also time to work on your health, to work on whatever mission you have in life. And, you know, I could watch the news 24/7 and just be irritated all the time, or I could really take this time and work on the mission I have for my life's work along with my family.
Yeah, obviously the life's work is the brain and all the work. And I have been following you. I followed you almost the day that I retired from the NFL. So thank you for that work. It really helped set me on the path. And the first one that I read was The Brain Warrior's Way. And then I've got the copy of the new one, The End of Mental Illness. Congrats on the new book. I mean, what kind of undertaking was this?
Well, you know, it's really my life's passion. And I knew I'd get a lot of grief from it because I'm sort of taking on the establishment.
Yeah.
But I think from a mental health perspective, we're just wrong. That the paradigm is wrong, making diagnoses based on symptoms with no biological information. And we can do better. And they're not mental illnesses, they're brain illnesses. And actually, it's my NFL work that informs so much of it. That when I started imaging, one of the first lessons I learned is mild traumatic brain injury ruins people's lives. And nobody knows about it because they go see psychiatrists and never look at the brain. And by looking at the brain, you understand the brain is soft. It's in a skull that has sharp bony ridges. Your brain controls everything you do, how you think, how you feel, how you act, how you get along with other people. And if you put it at risk for damage, what you're doing is you're damaging relationships. You're damaging someone's mood. You're damaging their ability to manage their money. And it doesn't mean people don't engage in high risk activities. What it means is you know about it and you repair it is on an ongoing basis. So for example, I treat a lot of firefighters, and firefighting's a brain damaging sport, a brain damaging profession.
Yep.
Own it. It is. The emotional trauma, the toxic exposure, the physical trauma. It doesn't mean we're not going to have firefighters, but what it means is we should be rehabilitating their brains, not just when they retire, but while they're working. And it's a radical idea, but I think most thoughtful 9-year-olds would get it. It's like, oh, if you're going to do something that hurts your brain, why don't we help it all along?
Yeah, put it in preventative, do some work before, and then as it's going on, because the jobs aren't going to stop in some of these careers. Football's most certainly not going to shut down anytime soon, it doesn't look like. And on the back end, there's some rehabilitative stuff. But you mentioned something there, it's brain illness and kind of reframing and rephrasing how we look at the brain and how we're looking at mental illness. Do you think even what we call it, mental illness, the labeling of that is harmful?
It's shameful. It shames people. It stigmatizes them. Nobody wants it. In 1979, so 41 years ago, when I told my dad I wanted to be a psychiatrist, he asked me why I didn't want to be a real doctor, why I wanted to be a nut doctor and hang out with nuts all day long. And my dad's not a dumb guy.
Right.
And I mean, he horrified me. I mean, he never really got Father of the Year award, but so many people believe that if you're anxious, if you're depressed, if you have bipolar disorder, that you're weak and that you could, if you wanted, to snap out of it. But nobody says that to diabetics, and nobody says that to people who have heart disease. But if you don't look at the organ and you really leave psychiatry as a very soft science, I mean, what medical specialists never look at the organ they treat.
Right.
The shame, the stigma will just continue at a rate that's horrible. I did my child psychiatry training in Hawaii. I'm also a child psychiatrist. And Hawaii is an Asian culture, and they're very Asian, which means they would never want to do anything to bring shame to the family. And so they don't go seek help for mental health issues until they're seriously impaired. But my experience, again, with Asian families is they'll do anything to give their child an advantage so that they can bring honor to the family.
Yes.
And so what if we just changed the marketing? What if we went, well, these aren't really mental illnesses, they're brain health issues that steal people's minds. Get your brain right and your mind will follow. So nobody wants to see a psychiatrist. No one wants to be labeled as defective or abnormal, but everybody wants a better brain. So what if mental health was brain health? And that's the heart of this book. Get your brain right and your mind will follow.
Because it's not really just mental health by itself. The brain is directing everything associated with it, the relationships, the ability to control yourself, the temper, when you have a temper and when you really lose it, and when you're not able to have the kind of impulse control, the brain really guides all of that. So in the book, you're talking about stealing your mind, and you just mentioned it there. And the Amen principles kind of are the bright minds principle. Can you talk about the 11 bright minds risk factors that may steal your mind?
Well, and if you think about it, your brain controls every decision you make. So when it comes to your health, Your health is a series of millions of decisions. When it comes to your money, it's a series of millions of decisions. When you think about your marriage or how you are as a dad, ultimately that success, there are hundreds of thousands or millions of decisions that go into that. And so one of the things I learned from the brain imaging work we do is if you want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it if it's headed to the dark place, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. And we know what they are. And I created a mnemonic called Bright Minds. And so, for example, the B in Bright Minds is for blood flow. Low blood flow is the #1 brain imaging predictor of Alzheimer's disease. Anything that decreases blood flow damages your brain. And so some of those things are caffeine, nicotine, hypertension, not exercising, any form of heart disease, even erectile dysfunction, because if you have blood flow problems anywhere, it likely means they're everywhere. And so know your risk, and then, well, what to do about it? Exercise, especially racket sports. People who play racket sports live longer than anybody else.
No kidding.
Yeah, swimming was second, but coordination exercises are so good to activate certain parts of your brain. Supplements like ginkgo, foods like beets, thyme, cayenne pepper, rosemary, oregano, increase blood flow to the brain. So that's just one. The R is retirement and aging. When you stop learning, your brain starts dying. So have a lifelong new learning routine, even just 15 minutes a day, whether it's learning a language or playing an instrument, just doing something that you're not used to doing. The I is inflammation. When it's so common in this country. Low levels of omega-3 fatty acids promote inflammation. Gum disease promotes inflammation. Processed food diets promote inflammation. So making sure you have an anti-inflammatory diet, think lots of vegetables, that you floss your teeth. I recommend everybody take omega-3 supplements. According to one study, 97% of the population was suboptimal when it comes to omega-3 fatty acids. The G in Bright Minds is for genetics, but we think about it wrong. Genes load the gun, but it's what happens to us in our behavior that pulls the trigger. So I have a family history of obesity and heart disease. I don't have heart disease and I'm not overweight. Why? Because I know it's my risk and I do whatever I can to prevent it. H is head trauma. It's a major cause of mental health issues and very few people know about it. But it, brain is soft, skull is hard, skull has sharp bony ridges. Damage your brain, you damage your life, which is why when Anthony Davis, the Hall of Fame running back from USC, came to see me in 2007, he was 54, but his brain looked like he was 100 and it was bad for 100. Wow. He had clear damage and he had periods of confusion, memory problems, irritability. But 5 months later, he's dramatically better. And he's like, Doc, we have to tell people about this. And he wrote the commissioner who didn't write us back. And then I presented at the retired chapter, Los Angeles chapter of the Retired NFL Players Association. And I was horrified by the level of depression, relationship problems, dementia that I saw in players I had idolized growing up in LA as a Ram fan. And, I'm like, well, somebody should do something about this. And, if you grew up Roman Catholic like I did, as soon as you go, somebody should do something about this, the next thought in your head, well, why isn't it you? And so I partnered with the LA chapter and Anthony Davis, and we did the first and largest study on active and retired NFL players. And the news was not good. I mean, I didn't expect it to be good, but high levels of damage in almost all of our players, not all, but almost all of our players. But, my goal in life is never to go, oh, you have a bad brain, I'm sorry. My goal, and I wrote about this in Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, is I bet I can make your brain better if you do what I ask you to do. And 80% of our players show improvement in as little as 2 months on a multiple vitamin, a brain boost, and high dose, high quality omega-3 fatty acids, along with stopping alcohol and marijuana and eating a bit better. I mean, and we published that study, which basically says even if you've been bad to your brain, you can make it better, and rehabilitating it as soon as possible it's just smart.
Doc, what do you say? I asked Cabran Chapik, who's up at Amen Clinics in the Seattle area. I had him on a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him when he mentioned marijuana, because it's a real uphill battle when you're talking about former players dealing with pain. And just, I think the population in general has this kind of misconception that there is some neuroprotective qualities around marijuana. What are you seeing in the findings with alcohol and marijuana both? Because I do my best. I don't do drugs. I rarely drink alcohol. If I do, it's maybe a beer or a glass of wine every 2 to 3 months, because I know how I feel afterwards. I mean, I feel it in my joints, I feel it in my nerves, but I feel it in my brain. And I feel like a low level depression kind of coming off of that. So I've really eschewed drugs and alcohol for a number of years now. What's the spec scan showing you on that?
It's so smart, Nick. So I have no dog in the fight.
Right.
I have no dog in the fight, but I have more experience looking at the brain than almost anybody in the history of the world. I have seen thousands of scans of people who drink alcohol and smoke pot versus don't. And your brain looks older and sicker. That alcohol is not a health food, and marijuana is not going green. It makes your brain look older. I published the world's largest imaging study on 62,454 scans. And we looked at how the brain ages, basically from 9 months old to 105. And then as part of the study, we looked at what accelerated aging. And marijuana accelerated aging almost worse than anything.
Okay.
Alcohol and smoking were right behind it. And anything that if you give it to teenagers and it increases their risk of psychosis, 450%, marijuana does that. If you give it to teenagers and it increases their risk of anxiety, depression, and suicide in their teens, marijuana does that. I'm never going to be a fan of that. And when you think of, well, I have pain or I have depression, well, there's so many other things that can help you, like SAMe or omega-3 fatty acids or curcumins. There's so many things we know that are non-toxic. Well, why wouldn't we go there first? And now with CBD and marijuana being legal in many places, it's literally the Wild West when it comes to supplement companies and marijuana companies. And I'm not okay with it, just because I see the problems that it causes. And when I was a young soldier, so when I was 18, I was almost drafted. So I joined so I could pick my job. I became an infantry medic, and I was stationed in Europe. And I was in a room with 5 other guys. All 5 of them smoked pot at night. And I just thought it was the dumbest thing, because that's all, they're in Europe, in the middle, in Germany, in the middle of Europe, and they're not doing anything. And I'm like, that's insane. And so I took night classes, got a year done at the University of Maryland. Um, and I traveled all the time because I just saw how it sucked the motivation out of these people.
It's very amotivational. I completely agree with that. And I went through a phase when I was younger, experimentation, and then got sucked into the world for a little bit of time. But then I really, once having kids, it hit me. It's like, you don't want them to find you're doing this, and you don't want to have to explain to them. And then kind of I reshaped my whole world after football to say, everything I'm doing in my life is geared towards health. Is this a healthy decision or not? No, it's not. So it has to go away. Now, one thing you said, Doc, that really put a dagger in my heart, because I love coffee. Caffeine is inflammatory. So this, I'll listen to whatever you tell me, because I completely trust in the work that you're doing. Caffeine, what's the science saying about that?
It constricts blood flow
Okay.
to the brain. And, as we talked about, anything that constricts blood flow to an organ prematurely ages the organ. And caffeine's addictive. It can mess with a lot of people's sleep. It increases pain syndromes. And I'm not a fan. Now, if you have a cup of coffee a day, it's not the end of the world. But the problem is people get a Starbucks venti that is equivalent to 3 cups of coffee.
Yes.
And at that level, it's an addiction level. And if you have trouble stopping because you have a headache, that's an addiction. That's called withdrawal. People's energy, when I can get them to stop coffee, decaf I think is fine, but stop caffeinated coffee, their energy generally goes up and their sleep gets better. It interferes with REM sleep, which is the most restorative form of sleep. And you don't want anything ever messing with your sleep.
Yeah, sleep is number one. And I think the same thing about it. Of course, like, I feel the headaches if I do try to get off of coffee, but then waiting in line at Starbucks, especially kind of in the time we're at where a lot of shops are closed down, and I see how long and extensive it is, it's like, wow, hold on. This is definitely an addiction that's going on. Now, Doc, you're definitely on the forefront of a new movement within medicine, within psychiatry, within brain health, all that. You can discuss, if you would, like, what you're finding in neuroscience, which challenges kind of an outdated psychiatric paradigm. What are you finding?
Well, I mean, the outdated paradigm is making diagnoses of serious psychiatric problems, major depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, obsessive compulsive disorder, with no biological data. It's insane that cardiologists look, your neurologist look, your orthopedic doctor looks, your GI doctor looks, every other medical specialist look, but they call me crazy because I want to look. And I'm not okay with that. It's like, there's not an argument for more information. Why wouldn't you want more information? That depression is, I think it is not a diagnosis. It's a symptom cluster. It's like chest pain. And no one gets a diagnosis of chest pain. Why? Doesn't tell you what causes it and doesn't tell you what to do about it. And I think it is just critical to understand why you're depressed. It's not because you have a Prozac deficiency. Now, you could have a testosterone deficiency, or you could have a thyroid deficiency, or you could have Lyme disease, but I just think, and it's outdated in the sense that our outcomes are no better than they were in the 1950s. That should horrify people. Depression has gone up 400% since 1987. And at the same time, antidepressant use has gone up 400% too. One would think if antidepressants went up, depression would go down, but it's not working out. We need to break this paradigm and do something completely different, which is why I gave the book the title, The End of Mental Illness, because we're just not thinking about it right.
the interruption once again. So while you're waiting this out at home with us, you can still have some fun betting online. Check out my friends at betonline.com. How long do you want to bet this COVID-19 quarantine lasts? I don't know, a month, 45 days, 60 days. What are we looking at? I know no March Madness or any of your leagues, but betonline.com still has hundreds of places to wager their online casino with poker and blackjack, and sports aren't totally done. There's still mixed martial arts, American Idol, the elections, the spelling bee, Nathan's hot dog eating contest. There's still fun to be had. So go to betonline.com, use the promo code MyPod100. That's MyPod, P-O-D 100 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's right. For our listeners, 50% off with the promo code MyPod100. BetOnline.com. The fun never ends. Kind of the silent epidemic in all of this is really head trauma that underlies the mental illness that you're seeing. And when you're bringing people into your office, do they even understand that they've had head trauma or that it's serious enough to give them the mental illness that they're suffering through at the time?
So it's one of the big early lessons from imaging was, you can see it on the scans actually pretty clearly. And I had this one guy, and he was anxious, depressed, aggressive, was having serious marital problems. And I could see it on the scan, but yet in his history he said he never had a head injury. And I went, are you sure? Have you ever fallen out of a tree, fell off a fence, dove into a shallow pool, played a contact sport, been in a bad car accident? And he's like, no, 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 no. And then he said, when I was 7 years old, I fell out of a second-story window. Do you think that counts? Maybe. And since that time, it's like the running joke at Amen Clinics. We see a head trauma on the scan, we're going to find it in your life. Now, we may have to ask you, we may have to send you home to talk to your mother. But, and if you think about it, there are 3 million new head injuries every year in the United States. And most people live. So that means over the last 40 years, there's 120 million people who've had a traumatic brain injury. And if you read the scientific literature, it's associated with depression, panic attacks, suicide, learning problems, ADHD, homelessness, and incarceration. So shouldn't we do a better job of protecting the brain?
On the front end, talk about protecting the brain, because accidents are going to happen, or guys like myself are going to get into football and it's going to continue to go on, or we have to have firefighters, we have to have police officers, we have to have people doing kind of rough and tumble jobs. How can we protect ourselves knowing that things are going to happen and that those jobs are going to still take place?
So the first step is you have to fall in love with your brain. Care about it. Nobody cares about their brain because you can't see it. You can see the wrinkles in your skin or the fat around your belly, and you can do something when you're unhappy with it. But because no one ever looks at their brain, nobody really cares. So caring is number one. Avoid anything else that hurts it. So if you're playing professional football, and I have a number of professional football players, that I treat, it's like, if you're going to play, you need to do everything else right. So by not smoking pot, by not drinking, by making sleep a priority, that just helps you so much to be rehabilitating your brain all the time. And then do things that help it. Supplementation, multiple vitamin, fish oil, vitamin D. I have a brain boost that we created called Brain Memory Power Boost. So supplementation, the right diet, sleep. So Tom Brady, historic and one of the best football players ever. He wrote a book called TB12.
Yes.
And it's basically how he trains. And I'm like, he does virtually everything right. And that's why at 42 or whatever he is, he's still playing at a very high level because he's doing everything else right. So many of my players, and you played in San Diego, right?
I played in San Diego, yes.
Yeah, so I have a lot of Chargers, the older Chargers. And they had a lot of bad habits. I mean, there was a lot of drug abuse and just a lot of bad habits. And that will accelerate the effects of trauma. And so if you're going to do something that puts you at risk, do everything else right.
What is, on the nutrition side, I'm super interested in this because I do think, along with supplementation, that we can control what we put into our mouths. And that's really going to help us out. It's really going to show up in the long term. The people who are eating the best foods, who are on the low inflammation diets, are going to have the best outcomes down the line. You mentioned the TB12. What kind of diet are you recommending to patients?
So eat as many vegetables as you can. There's a study from Australia that there is a linear correlation between the number of fruits and vegetables you eat a day and your level of happiness, up to 8. So people who ate 8 servings of fruits and vegetables a day were happier than those who ate 6, were happier than those who ate 4, were happier than those who ate 2. Really focus on colorful vegetables, some fruit, and then high quality protein with a whole bunch of healthy fat. Low fat diets are bad for the brain. And a lot of people, for some reason, cholesterol's been demonized. And you know, you don't want your cholesterol to be too high, but you don't want it to be too low. Cholesterol levels, total cholesterol under 160 is associated with depression, suicide, homicide, and death from all causes. And so having a healthy fat in your diet. So there's a study from the Mayo Clinic where they looked at people who had a healthy fat-based diet, avocados, nuts and seeds, healthy oils. They had a 42% less risk of getting Alzheimer's disease. And then they looked at people who had a protein-based diet, 21% less risk of Alzheimer's disease. And then they looked at people with basically the standard American diet, not healthy, but high simple carbohydrate-based diet, bread, pasta, potatoes, rice, sugar, a 400% increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. Wow. Vegetables, healthy fat, healthy protein, that is what will serve your brain and keep it healthy for the long run.
So you're not coining it like a ketogenic diet is better for the brain. You're just saying good amounts of healthy fats, not out of control cholesterol, but not too low cholesterol, and good lean proteins.
Right. And so ketogenic, my problem with that, I think it's great for people who have seizures and really good for people who are bipolar. It's a nightmare for people who worry and have obsessive compulsive disorder because they will worry more on that diet. I think for most of us, it doesn't have enough plants in it for it, because plants are medicine. If you really want to go to the pharmacy, think FARM, pharmacy, that it's, healthy plant-based foods.
Doc, how can somebody identify their brain type?
So a long time ago, I realized not everybody's got the same brain. It's, I've written a book about 7 different types of ADD and 7 types of anxiety and depression, and then 6 types of addicts and 5 types of overeaters. And then I realized, well, everybody's got a different type. And So based on our imaging work, there's a 5-minute test people can take, brainhealthassessment.com, brainhealthassessment.com. You'll know which of the 16 types you have, and it's based on 5 primary types. Balanced, spontaneous, it's my ADD group, persistent, sort of my OCD group, sensitive, and cautious. And then some people have multiple types. And it really helps know, well, what kind of supplements might be good for you? What kind of behavioral strategies could be good for you? So knowing your brain type is really helpful. And often I see couples who are mismatched because he's really spontaneous and she's persistent and cautious, and all of a sudden it doesn't work so well. And I married a very cautious prepper. So she has been telling me for 15 years that the end of the world is coming. And now that it's here, I'll never be able to say no to whatever she wants to buy again.
She's celebrating right now.
Oh my goodness, the I told you so's are so out.
Oh, that is good. But you're making the most of it for sure. How can someone find the kind of health provider who understands and uses this new paradigm of brain health that you're teaching, that you're implementing?
So we have 8 clinics around the country, and we have 40 docs that practice this way. And also we have a brain health coaching certification course, and we've had almost 4,000 people go through it and have referrals on our website that people can find someone in their local area.
Oh, fantastic. Can I take the course?
You can.
All right.
Brainhealthcoaching.com, or go to Amen University.
All right.
And for medical professionals, they can actually get 50 units of continuing medical education. And, you know, with the end of mental illness, I've really come to believe we are going to end mental illness when we create a revolution in brain health. And I would just love for you to be one of our revolutionaries.
Oh, that's awesome. The thing for me is I understand, and this came to me obviously because I played in the NFL. I had 6 diagnosed concussions. In 2008, I got knocked out on the field in Kansas City for 12 minutes. It was 2 full TV timeouts. I woke up in the x-ray room and they said, roll to your right. And I thought, oh God, I broke my neck. And they said, no, we're just checking your brain out, making sure everything's there and making sure you don't have any skull fractures. I said, oh Lord. So for me, it came to me that the brain is everything, and I have to really do my best to take care of this thing. And maybe when I'm 75 and 80, the damage that I've done to my brain, I can mitigate that as much as possible. And then when everybody else reaches those age, based on their lifestyle, maybe I'll meet up with them down the line. So I know how important the brain is. And for me, the whole thing is you have to get at a healthy body weight. You have to take care of your joints so you can continue to stay active and exercise, so you can continue to pump fresh blood and oxygen to that brain. So for me, I know that it's all about the brain, because without this thing, we've got no life. We're just a useless body.
Right. So we haven't scanned you yet, have we?
You have not scanned me.
Yeah, no, it's time to do that, because I always say, how do you know unless you look?
Yes.
And one of my favorite stories is Joe Namath. So historic Super Bowl MVP quarterback. And he called me in about 2009, and he's like, well, why would I want a spec scan? It's like, well, to see where you're at. And he actually got a scan, not with me, but somebody in Jupiter, Florida, did sessions of hyperbaric oxygen, and then another scan. His brain was better. Did 40 more sessions, and his brain was better still. And then did 40 more, and his brain was awesome. And in his late 70s. And it had been 40 years since he'd played. So imagine that you can make your brain better with something as simple as hyperbaric oxygen. Wow, that's so exciting. And not just for football players, for anybody that's, perhaps not been great to their brain, which is a whole bunch of people, most of us. And that is just so exciting. So at some point you should come and get scanned, and then it'll just fit with, okay, the good things I've done have really helped it, or I need to do more, because it's really the ultimate act of love that the better you are, the better dad you are, the better husband you are, the better person on a mission to help the world get healthy you are, because ultimately it comes down to the quality of the decisions that you make. But if you don't know where you start, how do you know how aggressive you should really be?
I love that. Well, when this all kind of clears, I'm going to come out and see you, and maybe we could do a little video out there, and we could show people what the initial scan looks like. And then I plan on getting a hyperbaric chamber come the fall, when some of my benefits open up, and I can just use my benefits to purchase a hyperbaric chamber. Going to put it in the basement, and then we can kind of track the progress as we go along. I think I remember seeing that Namath story and seeing how bright his eyes were for the first time in a long time. I mean, I remember watching him on Monday Night Football on the sidelines and thought, oh no, Namath's not doing so well. And then all of a sudden I saw him on a podcast and I saw him on network television, and he looked like a completely different human because he got his brain back.
Because he got his brain back.
Yeah. All right, so strange time we're in. If you had a magic wand or king for a day, had to implement a law, multiple laws, what would they be?
So in the end of mental illness, I actually have a fun writing device. And I just imagined, if I was an evil ruler and I wanted to increase the incidence of mental illness in America, what would I do? And there's actually 62 evil ruler strategies. Like in a pandemic, I'd give kids all the devices they want and let them spend hours a day playing video games. That totally would increase the incidence of mental illness. But then I also imagined, if I was a good ruler and I wanted to decrease the incidence of mental illness, what would I do? So I would be teaching brain health starting in second grade. I would get kids to fall in love with the organ that gives them independence, with the organ that gets them a date, with the organ that gets them into the college they want to get into, or play the sport they want to play at a high level. I would teach them to fall in love with their brains. And then I completely changed the food supply in the United States away from our processed fast food diets that are killing us to more fresh whole foods.
Dr. Amen, I love the message. So many nuggets in here, and I am going to take you up on this brain health coaching. And then when this all clears and blows over, I'm going to come out and see you, get a spec scan. And I really do sincerely appreciate for me and for a lot of football players and a lot of people who have put their bodies through the ringer for a long time and are trying to rehab the brain, for all the work you're doing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Nick, for helping me share it. And, too many football players go, oh, no, I don't want to scan because I don't want to know. My nephew, who I just adore, and he married a girl whose dad was an NFL player. And I'm like, come on, you should come to the clinic. And he's like, oh, I don't want to know. That is such the wrong attitude.
Right.
Because you do want to know, because if you knew a train was going to hit you, well, wouldn't you want to get out of the way, at least try to get out of the way? And there are things we can do that can make your brain better, and with a better brain always comes a better life.
Yeah. And you do want to know, because there is a lot of hope, because you can make changes. Good. Dr. Amen, thank you so very much. We appreciate you. Stay healthy during this time, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Great. Thanks, Nick.
All right. Thank you.